Hello everyone, I guess hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Today we are here with the November PSA Pop Report recap for this month, where I'll be going through most of the notable players from the 40s until the 2010s and their pop report changes and how that's broken down recently. For those that don't know, I do this every month as a way to keep up and help keep you guys informed in terms of what's changing out there and what's coming into the market. So with that said, let's go ahead and get on into it. So we've done this before, just to give a brief introduction. Basically, the PSA pops will be tracked in different categories. The older stuff's more spread out. The newer stuff is more high focus towards the 10s, 9s, and 8s. And then we have monthly percent changes along with some total changes over here on the far right. We'll be focused on the top 2/3 of the screen since my face is covering a part of the bottom third, but let's go ahead and get on into it. Stanley Matthews had a nice increase to his pop with a 12% on average across the board for what we're tracking here, which is pretty sizable for a 1930s player. Beneath that we have DeStefano, who had nothing graded this month across the board. Puskás didn't have much of an increase, 3%, mostly due to the Nanina in med grade getting graded, so that's going to be a big deal. Grincha didn't have a ton total graded, but one of the big ones was a mid-grade Becci, so that's going to be a big deal. Pele did have 3 Alifas graded, which is sort of a big deal as well, I would say. Beyond that, nothing too crazy. With Pele, I always don't know what to track because he has so many rookies and I don't want to track them all. I really don't. But these are just some of the more notable ones. A couple because they're plentiful, a couple because I like them a lot. But really, I just try to get a snapshot of what I can. Nothing too crazy going on there, but there definitely is increases there, as you can tell. Actually, a pretty big month for Eusebios being graded. As you can see, some med grades coming on in along with some low grades. Typically, Eusebios don't get graded that much, so that's kind of a big deal, I would say. Beyond that, the 2 on screen now are Beckenbauer and Gerd Muller. These are pretty notable because they were having a lot of moves recently. The last few months, they were going up quite a lot in terms of their Bergman foosball rookies. This month, not too crazy. Only 1 Muller getting graded and 2 Beckenbauers, 1 med-grade Beckenbauer, and 1 low grade for each, so nothing too wild there. Gerd Muller did have a boost to his TTT in mid-grade, which was a pretty big one, but beyond that, nothing too wild. Bobby Moore looking pretty stable up there on the top, but Cruyff down here, I guess he sort of had a big increase because of this 100% one. Realistically, in total, 13 getting graded isn't too crazy. Really nice to see is that the Verloc and the Palarex have had 0 graded this month, which is a good little, spell for them, I would say. The Vanderhout, however, did have 7 graded this month, so that is, pretty sizable, and that keeps flowing on in. Notable about the Vanderhout is it is 68 through 70 because it's the exact same card, so you do have 2 years worth of supply that will be coming on in for that. Then next we can kind of pick what we want between Platini, Maradona, Baresi, and Hugo Sanchez. No one really had too big of a move. Platini 3, Maradona 9, Baresi 3, Hugo Sanchez 4. I guess for Sanchez, that's kind of a big one considering he hasn't had much graded up until this point, but overall, nothing too crazy. Maradona did not have any discs, only 1 Estampas and Cartoon, but also 5 Calciatori, so those keep coming on in. Then we get into the 80s. This was actually a pretty good month for the 80s in terms of not having much graded at all, I would say. Hullet had nothing in the market. Matthias had 2. Mark van Basten had 0. Maldini had 0, which I thought was strange. And then Baggio only had 3, which kind of makes it seem more plausible. I mean, if Baggio's only having 3 and he's the more sought-after player, then I guess that can be doable. Then next we have the span of the late 80s to early 90s. So we have Cantona, we have Bergkamp, we have Zidane. Zidane only having +1 in his pop. That's pretty nice if you are a Zidane holder, I would say. Rivaldo and Roberto Carlos both barely going up at all, which is nice since those have had, I guess I would say, sort of a run in population. Depends which side you're on. For me, I actually don't own those, so I'm looking for them. So I guess seeing them not go up is not ideal. But in terms of their price point, they've been going down for quite a while. So it's nice to see that there is not a ton being pushed in at least. Beyond that, R9, not too much coming in, 6 into his market, and that is spread across 5 different cards. So really, almost 1 per card. Beckham also kind of stabilizing, I would say. I mean, his Merlin was just pumping on into PSA there for a bit. Now there's only 2 this month, which is weird. His shreddies, though, this is actually where it's really notable, his shreddies, there was 3 graded this month. So there was one PSA 7 to 8 range, and then there was another in the 5 through 6 range. So that is just massive, because those are very, very rare. Then with Buffon, there is a notable addition to a team release, as far as I can tell, the year before the Panini Calciatore for 95. So this is still a Panini release, as far as I'm aware, but I believe it's a team release. Didn't know about it, just found it recently, but I felt like it was worth getting in there to have everything else identified. Probably won't be seeing a ton of those, but it'll be interesting to see how that pop does move, because it certainly will. I guess now that you start to see them, you'd imagine you see more. That's usually how it works, at least in my experience. Same thing with the Ronaldo from Brazil, but Brazil's a bit more of a mystery than Italy, which is why that's a little strange. Then we get into the late 90s, where, again, not much is going on. That's kind of the theme with this month, I would say, in terms of the PSA Pop Report. It's looking pretty kind, I guess, to people that may own these cards, but overall, market still isn't that great, so it really depends on where you're at. But with Pirlo, only 1 rookie getting graded. Henry had 4. The most notable addition, I guess, was the increase in the Europas, which had a 3 and a 1 increase. The 1 increase actually was huge because it was the Russian version in a PSA 8 through 10 grade. So that's the first one ever graded that high. Nice to see, and interesting if that goes to auction what it would do. Then Eto'o actually had a pretty big increase, 23%, +6 total to the PSA 7 to 8 range. Stevie G had a +1, while beneath him we have Frank Lampard with 0. Now scroll down a bit further, this is where it gets kind of interesting. So with Xavi, we can see +8 total up here in the top right for his Monday Chromos. Then with Casillas, he had a +22 to his Monday Chromos, which I thought was wild. Almost all in PSA 5 through 6, the pop in that range almost doubled. I thought I just read it wrong, so I re-added it a few times. I believe that's right. It seems crazy to me. However, from my purchasing history, I do think a lot of these things are in pretty average grades. So at least if anything's coming in mass quantity, it is average grades, and that makes sense to me at least. Monday Chromos aren't particularly rare, however, the fact that just that many came in at once is pretty crazy. Then we have Ronaldinho. He only had a +1 increase. Zlatan actually had a +2, both in med, or I guess lower grades, not a 9 or a 10, not great grades, which is good, at least for these stickers, which are kind of weary about being faked maybe, so not having a good increase there is nice. Ronaldo had a +8, a +3 to his football sticker, and a +5 to the Mega Cracks. Iniesta had a +17 to his Monday Chromos, so that's a pretty big increase just across the board there. 8s, 9s, 10s, the whole thing. We can see Wayne Rooney only had 1 increase to his grades this month, but it was a PSA 9 of the black back version of his Merlin sticker, which is kind of rare, so that is a big deal. And then we get down towards the bottom here. So Messi's always a fun one to look at for me, just because I'm a big Messi guy, and I think Messi's sort of, the most plentiful but best player in the market, in the sense that he has a ton of rookie options, but he's also a GOAT. So I think it's a fun mix of both, right? But this month, PSA 10s, no PSA 10s for anyone. That was the first time in 4 months after I went back and checked that did not happen. So no PSA 10s, good to see, I guess, or maybe PSA has that locked, who knows. I also think it's good to note that there's no PSA 9s or 10s of the Este sticker this month, either the green Campeão version or the green regular Spanish version of the Mega Cracks, and there's also no 9s or 10s of the real Mega Cracks, the 71 bis, no 9s and 10s of the blue numbered 35 Campeão version either. Actually, none of those graded this month, which is pretty crazy to see. I guess looking at the total gradeds for this month, it would tell you that the Monday Chromos still, getting pumped in pretty heavily. 16 graded this month compared to anything else, where the highest was 7. However, looking back at last month, actually the Monday Chromos was 6, while the white version of the Campeão card from the Mega Crack set was 12. So I guess it varies. And then going back another month, you can see that it's 16 and 15. So yeah, basically the Monday Chromo and the Spanish version of the white team set Barca Messi card is going to be the most plentiful graded. That should be pretty apparent if you've been watching these videos for quite a bit at this point, but it's nice to just kind of see how that's moving month to month and compare over time. So this month, only 1 foil graded, none of the blues graded, and also none of the Este stickers graded, so I guess those would be the least plentiful in terms of rookies coming out for Messi. Beyond that, down here at the bottom, what do we have? So we have Sergio Ramos, nothing all too much going on there, and Lewandowski had also nothing at all, which is pretty interesting. He does have a pretty high pop, I guess I would say, for having nothing coming in this month. I mean, if you have 120 stickers graded or more in a PSA 8 through 10 range, you would think that, you know, maybe next month there's one more that comes in. Interesting to see that isn't the case, but I guess we'll have to see how that moves going forward. But yeah, that is going to be it for me today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. In addition to that, let me know any players you would like to see added to the list, preferably GOATs. Some players that I'll be adding that will give you an idea is I'll be adding Neuer, I'll be adding Neymar, those types of players. Preferably more modern. The more vintage they go, the less likely they are to be on the list, because they have to really be GOATs to be on here. And also, if you know how to track PSA pops without having to manually update it all the time, let me know. That'd be a huge help, and if you could do that, that would allow me to do a lot more. So, interesting stuff. But with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and peace.